Let's talk about travel and traffic. This week I've reworked practically everything about how ships move, from travel between systems, to the path they take coming and going from a station, to even how the transforms are built to put it all together. There are several reasons behind this. For one thing, if you looked closely you might have noticed there's a little bit of glitchiness right as the player ship comes into land. But also, if there are a lot of ships coming and going, I wasn't doing anything to stop them from landing on top of each other. For some of the station designs, I needed more control over the path ships would take. And also, as I started experimenting with GI probes, I needed the stations to remain stationary. If you've been watching this series from the beginning, you may recall that I decided to make the universe revolve around the player's ship, to avoid imprecision errors when traveling long distances, but that's no longer necessary because each location has a separate scene centered around the origin. Lastly, I wanted to start defining specific hyperspace routes, rather than being able to go directly from any system to any other system, partly so I could have story missions for the Path Corporation that unlock new shortcuts. This part was pretty straightforward. Every space station and hyperspace link is a node added to an A-star graph used for pathfinding. So let's talk about what happens when you arrive in a system. To prevent ships from landing on top of each other, each station now manages a docking queue. If all the paths are full, any new ships that want to land go into orbit while they wait their turn. But for the sake of a better player experience, you always get to skip the line. But still, I had to test it out on the player ship, so this is what it would look like if you did have to wait in orbit. Now the more interesting part I think is the waypoint system. I'm using Godot's Curve 3D for this, but I couldn't find a built-in editor for curves, so instead I'm using invisible spatial nodes. I'm grouping these under two parents, waypoints in and waypoints out, and inside each waypoint I have two additional spatial nodes for control points. I also have control points on the hyperspace gate and on the landing pads for some stations. So basically, on approach, if a landing pad is available, the curve is constructed from three parts. A waypoint constructed from the hyperspace gate, anything under the waypoint's end node, and the landing pad. But to prevent sending all the ships through the same points and making them collide, I offset each waypoint by the relative position of the pad they'll be landing on. Similarly, every ship in orbit gets a random offset to its height and orbit radius. However, this isn't enough to fully prevent ships from overlapping sometimes. So I think my next step will be, instead of following the curve directly, to have ships pulled toward a point on the curve while repelled by each other. But in the meantime, these stations are already looking a lot more alive. You may have also noticed a couple of new station models I haven't shown before, but I'd like to reiterate, these are just concept intermediates. I'm handing these off to a 3D artist far more skilled than me, and I'm eager to see the finished results. Now before I wrap this up, I'm going to give just a brief update on the economy simulation. It's not quite finished yet because I've made one significant design change, which is instead of having a tech tree of recipes, there'll be just one template recipe per product type, and then each company will have a slight random variation on that, such as requiring fewer ingredients or having higher output, and I'll assign randomly generated names, so you'll still see different products in the goods list. But I won't have to spend time manually authoring a variety of recipes for different foods, for example. And I guess that's all for this week, so as always, it really helps if you hit the like button, spread the word about this channel, and subscribe if you haven't already, and of course, thanks for watching.